because Yang Fu had so many students, like countless students, the variations of Yang Style Tai Chi grew significantly. The basis of traditional Yang Style Tai Chi is this long form. The long form you will hear numbered differently. Chinese people really like the number 8 and always try to work 8 into the number for things, and it's really arbitrary how you count up the moves to get to those numbers. We're not part of the Yang family. Our lineage is derived from Fu Zhongwen. There are all these little variations, and it's really hard to learn Yang Style Tai Chi from traditional because the form itself is a little bit different depending on where you learn. The flavor is different, approach is different. In 1956, they created the 24 form. They gathered a group of Yang Style Tai Chi masters. Fu Zhongwen was one of these masters. The person who headed up the commission for the 24 form was Master Rai Ping's main Tai Chi teacher, Li Tianji. They formed this committee to come up with a standardized short form. They basically got these masters to come together to agree to a set sequence and how to do the movements. And it was mainly used for competition so that you could evaluate. After it was created, then Yang Style Tai Chi really took off because it made it so much easier to learn and also to teach. So nowadays, most people, your first introduction to Yang Style Tai Chi is not traditional. It's the 24 form and what has then derived from the 24 form. Even though they call 24 form simplified compared to the long form, but it's still not simple. So there are other shorter forms that have been created since then that use the 24 form movements as the basis. It is important to know the history, to know that the 24 form is very contemporary. Although it is wonderful, like we use it here as the basis of our curriculum, but the 24 form feel a bit forced, a bit exaggerated. I absolutely don't agree with a thought process that a lot of people who are traditionalists believe that the 24 form is garbage and only the traditional form is valid, because I have seen so many people who do traditional forms that don't understand Tai Chi principles because they were only following the choreography. Just learning the form itself doesn't mean anything if your teacher doesn't teach you principles. And those principles can be taught, I think, better starting out with the 24 form, because the 24 form movements are so much bigger. If you can connect at the bigger level, you can connect at the smaller level. So Tai Chi, the connection is the most important thing. And the traditional Yang style movements are all a little bit smaller. The expansion of your Pong is just not as big. The reason why 24 form needs it to be so big is because you need to be easily evaluated on how you're doing the movements. So if we make you do the movements to the biggest ends of the movements, then we can see if you're connected or not. If you're not connected, out to the biggest extent of the movement, you likely don't have your connection. So if you only go through a small range, then we can't see it so well, and you probably just don't know either. So if you can connect it big, you can also connect it small. But people who only do 24 form do need to understand where the movements came from. If you only know 24 form and only know simplified, then you are also missing a very, very large picture of things. The other thing that I see a lot of that is absolutely not correct are people who have only learned 24 form and think that the long form are just more movements. How they do 24 form and how they do the long form are completely interchangeable, and that is not right, because your approach to the movement is different, because the purpose of the forms are different. Traditional Yang Style Tai Chi, there is a fluidity that is a little bit more natural feeling than in 24 form. The movements don't feel so exaggerated. So 24 form, rush knee and press. One up, one down. Come to the middle. Press. We come back. We turn to the corner. We shift the weight. We've got one palm that's facing palm up, one palm that's facing palm down. The hand that's palm up comes up, hand that's down comes and presses down. Come forward. Come back. We turn. Shift the weight, that left hand, palm up. Palm down and turns to palm up, right? So we've got this full shifting of the weight forward, full shifting of the weight back. The arms go through this range of motion, palm down, palm up. This allows us to see whether you have your principles of movement, of maintaining your arm arc. If you have your palm facing down here and you rotate it to palm facing up, if you can keep this curve, then that means that you have the internal rotation. If you do this rotation like this, I can easily see that you've broken your arm structure, right? Then that means that you don't understand this principle yet. Making you do this turn allows me to easily see whether you understand how to rotate your arm, because it went through the full entire rotation. If we make you go through the entire range of motion here, then we can tell if you understand this part of the structural alignment, right? If to go back, you're like this, then you go forward, you can't, and then you come up, then we know you don't have that part of your structure. We can easily see that. The 24 form is designed so that we can easily evaluate you, especially in a big room where you have a lot of people doing the movements. These are things that will pop up right away. I can immediately say, okay, this person is turning like this, the elbow's coming in. This person, they're like this, you know, they've got their back arched. So 108, it's like this. We're going forward. So there's no need to go all the way back. to then go forward again. It's not necessary. It's more efficient to go forward. So we go forward and we come back just enough so that we can open up that foot. Just enough to open up that foot, and then we just go forward again. Then the arm, this is not actually necessary to rotate and make this big rotation. The hand, it just comes up to here. The palm faces forward. We come back just enough to open up the foot, and when we do that, we open up the palm. And then it just comes up right from here. It just comes up. 24 form style. You come back. Turn, shift the weight, the left palm comes up, step, turn that palm up. Come back all the way, turn, shift. The palm comes down and then it turns the palm up, and then just kind of feel you've got this full range of motion. So now, this hand, it's just going to come up with the palm facing forward. And then this hand is going to follow that hip turn to turn the palm over. And then it's just going to come up with the palm facing forward to come up. And the legs, we're not going to go back all the way after we come forward. So the first one where? Come forward. So we don't need to go back all the way. Just enough to open up that left foot so it faces the corner. And you want to feel that connection. When this opens, the palm also turns the palm up, because this is a block here. Like this here is a block. So we allow that to connect with the hip to turn, and we don't need to shift back all the way for that. All we need to do is come off of it a bit to turn it over to a block. Come forward. Come off of it just a bit. Turn the palm over to be palm up. The one-away form, it kind of feels like it moves itself. The 24 form, I never feel like it moves itself. The 24 form doesn't move without me moving it. But the one-away form, it almost feels like I am just the vehicle and I go along with where the form wants to go. The 24 form, I have to direct where it goes. If I'm coming forward, it's not going to come back unless I intend to come back, I have a lot of intentions in 24 form to direct where I want the movements to go, because they're not really going to go there without my intentions to go there. Far less intentions in the 108, because here it's almost like it just flows on its own. Like, a lot of that part doesn't need me. I kind of just need to start it, and then it's on its own, and I just follow with it. It just has more fluidity to go. There are many lineages, many different approaches. This is one of the many. I hope you got the sense there are differences in 24 form and traditional Yang, and there are reasons to why those differences exist. Like, your whole approach to the movements need to be different so that you can authentically express the differences. Then whenever you encounter differences, they make sense to you. You know, whether you're learning a new move, when you switch over to another lineage that does something differently, then you can, better transition over to understanding why they have their differences. They all make sense if you get into the feeling of that flow, follow the energy, follow the spiral, see where the expression is out, understand what's the purpose of that intended move. It all makes sense. Every single variation of everything makes sense.